At my wife's 40th birthday party, her lover walked in with flowers. She kissed him in front of everyone. "Finally, a real man," she announced. I stood up and handed him an envelope. "Congratulations, she's all yours." He opened it, read it, dropped the flowers, and ran. But let me back up. My name is Daniel Vance, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had a normal life. I work as a senior claims investigator for Midwest Mutual Insurance, the kind of job where you learn to spot lies from a mile away. 15 years of marriage to Eleanor had taught me she was many things: ambitious, controlling, occasionally cruel. But I never thought she was stupid enough to flaunt an affair at her own birthday party. The evening started like any other social disaster Eleanor orchestrated. Our suburban Cleveland home was packed with her hospital PR colleagues, yoga friends, and the usual collection of social climbers who gravitated toward my wife's particular brand of manufactured charm. I played bartender, refilling wine glasses and listening to conversations about organic skincare and luxury vacation plans that made my insurance salary look pathetic. Eleanor held court in our living room, wearing a black cocktail dress that cost more than my monthly car payment. At 40, she was still striking. Auburn hair, perfectly styled, green eyes that could cut glass when she was angry, which was often. She'd been working late more frequently, claiming the hospital's new cancer wing needed constant PR attention. I should have known better. The doorbell rang at 8:30. Through our front window, I saw a black Mercedes in the driveway, not one I recognized. Eleanor's face lit up with an expression I hadn't seen directed at me in years. "Oh, that must be Marcus," she said, smoothing her dress. "He's been so supportive during my treatment planning." Marcus Cole walked in like he owned the place. Mid-30s, expensive suit, the kind of confident smile that suggested he'd never been told no. He carried an elaborate bouquet of white roses, Eleanor's favorite, though I couldn't remember the last time I'd bought her flowers. "Sorry I'm late, beautiful," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Traffic was homicide. Eleanor practically glowed. She took the flowers, inhaled dramatically, then did something that made the entire room go silent. She kissed him. Not a friendly peck on the cheek, but a full, passionate kiss that lasted long enough for everyone to understand exactly what they were witnessing. When they finally broke apart, Eleanor looked directly at me with a smile that could have frozen Lake Erie. "Everyone, I want you to meet Marcus Cole. He works in IT at the hospital, and he's been absolutely wonderful during this difficult time. Finally, a real man who knows how to treat a woman." The room was dead quiet. Roxy, Eleanor's best friend and social media queen, had her phone out, probably live streaming the whole disaster. Mrs. Henderson from next door looked like she might faint. Even Eleanor's yoga instructor seemed uncomfortable. I set down the wine bottle I'd been holding and walked over to Marcus. He was taller than me by a few inches, broader in the shoulders, with the kind of gym-built physique that screamed insecurity. His smile faltered slightly when he saw my expression. "Marcus," I said, extending my hand. "Daniel Vance, Eleanor's husband." He shook my hand with the aggressive grip of someone trying to prove something. "Oh yeah, Eleanor's told me so much about you." "I'm sure she has." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. "Congratulations. She's all yours." Marcus took the envelope, his confident smile wavering. "What's this?" "Open it." The room held its breath as Marcus tore open the envelope. I watched his face change as he read the contents. Confusion, then recognition, then pure terror. The color drained from his cheeks. His hands started shaking. This can't be right," he whispered. 7 wives, Marcus. 7 wealthy women who died mysteriously after marrying you. Amazing what you can find when you know how to look." Marcus dropped the flowers. White roses scattered across our hardwood floor like bones. He looked at Eleanor, then back at me, then at the crowd of witnesses surrounding us. "You're insane," he said, but his voice cracked. "Eleanor, this man is obviously having some kind of breakdown." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. "Because I've got photos of you meeting with Vincent Carrera at the Riverside Marina last Tuesday." "You remember Vincent, don't you? Your handler? The man who's been running this operation for the past 5 years?" That's when Marcus ran. He pushed through the crowd, stumbled over Mrs. Henderson's purse, and bolted for the door. We heard his Mercedes screech out of the driveway like he was fleeing a crime scene. The room erupted in whispers and gasps. Roxy's live stream was probably breaking the internet. Eleanor stood frozen, still holding Marcus's abandoned roses, her perfect party crumbling around her. Daniel, she said carefully, what did you just do? I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. The woman I'd shared 15 years with, who'd cried in my arms when her father died, who'd celebrated every promotion and anniversary, was staring at me like I was the enemy. I saved your life, I said. You're welcome. But as the guests began filing out, whispering among themselves and shooting me looks that ranged from pity to suspicion, I realized saving Eleanor's life might have cost me everything else. 3 months earlier, I'd been a different man, naive maybe, certainly trusting. The kind of husband who believed his wife when she said she was working late, who didn't question new friendships or sudden interest in support groups. The first sign something was wrong came on a Tuesday morning in February. Eleanor was in the shower and her phone buzzed on the nightstand. The preview showed a text from someone named M. Can't wait to see you tonight, wear the red dress. I stared at that message for a full minute, my coffee growing cold in my hand. Eleanor didn't own a red dress. She'd always said red made her look washed out. When she came out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around her hair, I was still holding her phone. You got a text, I said. She snatched the phone away faster than necessary. Probably work stuff. You know how crazy things get with the new cancer wing opening. From someone named M? Eleanor's face went carefully blank. Marcus Cole, he's the new IT manager. Very efficient. Sends updates at all hours. She was lying. 15 years of marriage teaches you the tells. The way her left eye twitched slightly, how her voice went up half an octave, the defensive set of her shoulders. But I wanted to believe her. God help me, I actually wanted to believe my wife wasn't having an affair. The second sign came a week later. I was reviewing insurance claims at my desk when Dennis Murphy, my partner at Midwest Mutual, dropped a file in front of me. Take a look at this. He said, Dennis was ex-military, the kind of guy who noticed everything and forgot nothing. Remember that claim we denied last year, the warehouse fire downtown? I remembered. A suspicious blaze that destroyed a textile warehouse, with an insurance payout that would have been worth $3 million. Our investigation had found evidence of arson, and we'd denied the claim. The company had gone bankrupt, and several investors had lost everything. What about it? The main investor was a guy named Vincent Carrera. Turns out he's got connections to some very unpleasant people. Word is, he's been holding grudges. Dennis slid another paper across my desk. It was a surveillance photo, grainy but clear enough. Vincent Carrera, sitting in a restaurant booth across from a younger man in an expensive suit. Marcus Cole. My blood went cold. Where did you get this? I've got friends who keep an eye on certain people. This was taken last month at Enzo's downtown. They had a very cozy conversation. I studied the photo. Marcus was leaning forward, listening intently as Carrera gestured with his hands. Whatever they were discussing, it wasn't IT support for the hospital. Dennis, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Always am. If someone wanted to get to me, hurt me somehow, what would be the best way? Dennis considered this seriously. Through your wife, it's always through the family. Why? I told him about the text messages, Eleanor's late nights, the new friendship with Marcus Cole. Dennis listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker. Danny, he said finally, I think you're in trouble. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I followed my wife. Eleanor said she was attending a cancer support group at the hospital, something she'd started a month earlier after her doctor found some concerning test results. She'd been vague about the details, just said she needed emotional support while they ran more tests. I parked across the street from Cleveland General and watched her walk into the main entrance. 20 minutes later, she came out the side exit and got into a silver BMW that was waiting for her. Marcus Cole's BMW. They drove to the Riverside Marina, a collection of expensive restaurants and bars along the Cuyahoga River. I followed at a distance, my heart pounding. They went into Enzo's, the same restaurant where Marcus had met with Vincent Carrera. I sat in my car for 2 hours, watching through the restaurant's windows as my wife laughed and held hands with another man. When they finally came out, Eleanor was wearing a red dress I'd never seen before. They went to Marcus's apartment. I drove home and sat in my empty house, staring at the walls Eleanor had decorated, the life we'd built together, and tried to figure out what the hell was happening to me. The next morning, I called in sick and went to see Dennis. "I need your help," I said. "I need to know everything about Marcus Cole." Dennis cracked his knuckles. "Now you're talking my language." It took us 3 days to uncover the truth, and when we did, I wished we hadn't. Marcus Cole wasn't just Eleanor's lover. He was a professional hunter who specialized in targeting vulnerable women, specifically wealthy women dealing with medical crises. His pattern was always the same: meet them at support groups, offer emotional support their husbands couldn't provide, isolate them from their families, then marry them quickly. 7 women in 5 years, all wealthy, all dead within 18 months of marriage. The first was Patricia Hendricks in Miami, a real estate heiress who died of complications from lupus treatment. The second was Margaret Ross in Atlanta, a pharmaceutical executive who died from a reaction to experimental cancer drugs. The third was Jennifer Walsh in Phoenix, whose heart condition proved fatal despite the best medical care money could buy. The pattern was invisible unless you knew what to look for. Each woman had legitimate medical issues. Each passing was medically explainable. Each time, Marcus inherited everything and moved on to a new city, a new identity, a new sufferer. "He's not just a gold digger," Dennis said, spreading the files across his kitchen table. "He's a professional butcher, and someone's been providing him with targets, new identities, medical connections." "Vincent Carrera? Has to be. Carrera's got the resources, the connections, and the motivation. You cost him $3 million, Danny. This is payback." I stared at the photos of Marcus's previous wives. 7 women who trusted him, loved him, died because of him. And now he had Eleanor. "There's something else," Dennis said quietly. "I ran a background check on your wife's medical records. Danny, she doesn't have cancer." The room spun around me. "What?" "Her test results are clean. Whatever she's been telling you about treatment planning, support groups, medical concerns, it's all fabricated." Eleanor wasn't a sufferer. She was a willing participant. That's when I started planning my revenge. I spent the next week living a lie, pretending everything was normal while my world collapsed around me. Eleanor continued her charade of doctor's appointments and support group meetings, coming home with stories about new treatments and brave fellow patients. She was a gifted actress. I had to give her that. Meanwhile, Dennis and I worked like detectives building a case. We tracked Marcus's financial records, documented his meetings with Carrera, and compiled evidence of his previous marriages and the suspicious passings that followed. The pattern was undeniable once you saw it clearly. But we needed more than suspicion. We needed proof that would hold up in court, evidence so solid that even Eleanor couldn't deny what she'd gotten herself into. The breakthrough came when Dennis's military contacts provided us with surveillance equipment. We planted a listening device in Eleanor's car and a GPS tracker that would tell us exactly where she went during her supposed medical appointments. What we discovered was worse than I'd imagined. Eleanor wasn't just having an affair. She was actively helping Marcus plan my ending. The recordings were damning. In her car after one of their dinner dates, Eleanor and Marcus discussed the best way to make my passing look accidental. They'd considered everything from a staged car accident to poisoning that would mimic a heart attack. "The insurance payout alone is worth $2 million, Eleanor said on one recording. "Plus the house, his retirement account, everything we've built together." "What about the investigation?" Marcus asked. "Your husband's not stupid. He works in insurance fraud." Eleanor laughed, actually laughed. "Danny's so focused on work, he barely notices I exist anymore. He'll never see it coming. Besides, I've been documenting his drinking, his mood swings, his paranoia about work. If anyone asks questions, I'll just be the grieving widow whose husband finally snapped." Listening to those recordings was like being stabbed repeatedly. This woman I'd loved, supported, built a life with, she was planning to homicide me for money. But there was more. Marcus wasn't acting alone. The recordings revealed that Vincent Carrera had been orchestrating everything from the beginning. Carrera had specifically targeted Eleanor because of her connection to me, knowing that my end would serve dual purposes: revenge for the denied insurance claim and profit from my life insurance. "Vincent says the timeline needs to accelerate," Marcus said in another recording. "He's getting pressure from his investors. They want Vance dead within the month." "I can make that happen," Eleanor replied. "I've been putting small amounts of arsenic in his coffee. Not enough to eliminate him yet, just enough to make him sick, confused. When he finally dies, it'll look like his health just deteriorated. That explained the headaches, the nausea, the fatigue I'd been experiencing for weeks. My own wife had been slowly poisoning me. I sat in Dennis's kitchen listening to my wife plan my homicide and felt something break inside me. Not just my heart. That had been shattered days ago, something deeper. My faith in humanity, maybe. My belief that people were fundamentally good. "We have to go to the police," Dennis said. "With what? Recordings that might not be admissible, circumstantial evidence about previous passings in other states. They'll investigate, maybe, but by then I could be dead." "So what do you want to do?" I looked at the files spread across the table. 7 dead women, a conspiracy that reached back years, a wife who'd been poisoning me while pretending to love me. "I want to destroy them," I said. "All of them, publicly, completely. Danny, be careful. These people are dangerous." "So am I." The plan I developed was elegant in its simplicity. If Marcus and Eleanor wanted to play games with life and end, I'd show them what a real professional looked like. First, I stopped drinking the coffee Eleanor prepared for me, dumping it down the sink when she wasn't looking. Within days, my health began improving. The headaches faded and my energy returned, my thinking became clearer. Second, I began documenting everything. Every conversation, every lie, every false tear Eleanor shed about her non-existent cancer diagnosis. I installed cameras in our house, recorded phone calls, and built an airtight case that would expose the entire conspiracy. Third, I started feeding Eleanor false information, making her think I was sicker than I actually was. I complained about chest pains, mentioned updating my will, even visited a cardiologist and made sure Eleanor knew about the appointment. "The doctor says it's stress," I told her, watching her face carefully. "My heart's showing signs of strain. He wants to run more tests." Eleanor's eyes lit up with what she probably thought was concern, but looked more like hunger to me. "Oh, honey, you should take better care of yourself. Maybe you should take some time off work, rest more." "Maybe you're right," I said. "Life's too short to spend it all working." That night, I heard her on the phone with Marcus, whispering excitedly about my deteriorating health and how they needed to be ready to move quickly. The fourth part of my plan was the most dangerous. I arranged to meet Vincent Carrera myself. I called his office, identified myself as Daniel Vance from Midwest Mutual, and said I wanted to discuss the warehouse fire claim. Carrera agreed to meet me at a coffee shop downtown, probably thinking I was going to offer him some kind of settlement. Vincent Carrera was a small man with expensive clothes and cold eyes. He looked like an accountant, which made him more frightening somehow. Evil should be obvious, not hidden behind wire-rimmed glasses and a friendly smile. "Mr. Vance," he said, shaking my hand. "Thank you for reaching out. I was hoping we could resolve our differences." "I'm sure you were." I sat down across from him, studying his face. "Tell me about Marcus Cole." Carrera's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. "I'm not sure I know who you're referring to." "Sure you do. Mid-30s, drives a BMW, specializes in marrying wealthy women who die mysteriously. Currently working on wife number 8, my wife." Now Carrera smiled, and it was genuinely terrifying. "Mr. Vance, I think you may be confused. Perhaps the stress of your marriage problems is affecting your judgment." "My marriage problems?" "Oh, I know all about your wife's affair. Tragic, really. A woman facing a cancer diagnosis, feeling neglected by her husband, turning to another man for comfort. These things happen." The casual way he said it, like Eleanor's life was just another chess piece in his game, made my hands clench into fists. "Here's what's going to happen," I said quietly. "You're going to call off your attack dog. You're going to leave my wife alone, and you're going to find a new line of work, because I'm about to expose your entire operation." Carrera laughed. "Mr. Vance, I think you're overestimating your position. You're just one man, and you're not even a healthy one from what I hear. Sometimes the stress of modern life proves too much for people. Heart attacks, strokes, accidents. They happen every day. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. Go home to your wife, Mr. Vance. Enjoy whatever time you have left together." I stood up, leaning over the table until my face was inches from his. "Vincent, let me give you a reality check. I've spent 15 years investigating insurance fraud. I know how to find evidence, how to build cases, how to destroy people's lives with paperwork and persistence. I've already documented everything: Marcus's previous marriages, the suspicious passings, your meetings, the whole conspiracy. If anything happens to me, that information goes to the FBI, the state attorney general, and every major news outlet in the country. For the first time, Carrera looked uncertain. You're bluffing. Try me. I walked out of that coffee shop knowing I'd just declared war on a man who eliminated people for a living. But I also knew I'd rattled him, made him realize this wasn't going to be as easy as his previous operations. That night, I prepared the envelope I would give to Marcus at Eleanor's birthday party. Inside was a complete dossier on his 7 previous wives, photographs of his meetings with Carrera, copies of financial records showing the insurance payouts, and a letter explaining exactly what kind of monster he was. But the real surprise was the last page, a copy of the recording where Eleanor discussed poisoning me with a note that said, "She's been planning to eliminate you too. You're just another loose end." Because that was the truth Marcus didn't know. Eleanor and Carrera had discussed eliminating him once I was dead, making it look like a homicide, self-destruction, so there would be no witnesses to their conspiracy. I was going to let Marcus Cole discover that he wasn't the hunter in this situation. He was just another sufferer. The morning after Eleanor's birthday party, I woke up alone. Eleanor had spent the night at Roxy's house, claiming she needed space to process what had happened. In reality, she was probably trying to figure out how much I knew and whether her carefully constructed plan could still be salvaged. I made coffee, real coffee, not the poisoned brew Eleanor had been serving me, and sat at my kitchen table, reviewing the recordings Dennis and I had collected. We had enough evidence to destroy everyone involved, but I wanted to be strategic about how I used it. My phone rang. Dennis. "You need to see the news," he said. I turned on the television. Channel 8's morning show was running a story about Marcus Cole, though they didn't name him directly. "Local hospital employee questioned in multi-state investigation," the headline read. The reporter, a sharp-looking woman named Sarah Chen, was standing outside Cleveland General. "Sources tell us that federal investigators are looking into the suspicious ends of several women across multiple states, all connected to a man who may have used hospital employment as a way to target vulnerable patients. While no charges have been filed, we've learned that the FBI has opened a formal investigation into what they're calling a Black Widow operation." I smiled grimly. The information I'd sent to various law enforcement agencies was already bearing fruit. My phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. "We need to talk. This is insane. You're destroying innocent people." I texted back, "Come home. We'll talk." She arrived an hour later, still wearing the same clothes from the night before. Her perfect hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared. She looked like what she was, a woman whose world was collapsing. "Daniel, what have you done?" she demanded, standing in our living room like an avenging angel. "I saved your life," I said calmly. "You should be thanking me. Marcus isn't a butcher. He's a good man who's been helping me through a difficult time." "What difficult time would that be, Eleanor? Your cancer diagnosis that doesn't exist?" She froze. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out a folder and set it on the coffee table. "Your medical records. Clean bill of health. No cancer, no concerning test results, no need for support groups or experimental treatments. You've been lying about everything." Eleanor's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, fear, then calculation. She was trying to figure out how to spin this, how to maintain her sufferer narrative. The doctor said there might be the early signs. I was being proactive." "Eleanor, stop. I know about the arsenic in my coffee. I know about your conversations with Marcus, planning my passing. I know about Vincent Carrera and the insurance money and all of it." She sat down heavily on our couch, the fight going out of her. For a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married, vulnerable, human, real. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. "About the affair, a couple of months. About the homicide plot, 2 weeks. Why didn't you just confront me? Why this elaborate public humiliation?" I studied my wife's face, looking for some sign of remorse, some indication that she understood the magnitude of what she'd done. I saw only self-pity and wounded pride. "Because you were going to eliminate me, Eleanor. You were poisoning me slowly, planning to make it look like a heart attack or stroke. You were going to cry at my funeral, collect the insurance money, and run off with a serial butcher to live happily ever after." "It wasn't supposed to be like that," she said, tears starting to flow. Marcus said it would be quick, painless. He said you wouldn't suffer. The casual way she discussed my planned homicide was breathtaking. This woman had shared my bed and eaten at my table, pretended to love me while plotting my end. What about his other wives, Eleanor, Patricia, Margaret, Jennifer, and 4 others? Did Marcus tell you about them? Did he mention that he's eliminated 7 women for their money? Eleanor's face went white. That's not true. Marcus lost his first wife to cancer. That's why he's so passionate about helping other people going through the same thing. I opened the folder and spread out the photographs, death certificates, and financial records. 7 wives, 7 mysterious ends, 7 insurance payouts. Marcus Cole is a professional butcher, and you're supposed to be his 8th sufferer. Eleanor stared at the documents, her hands shaking. This can't be right. It gets better. I pulled out another set of papers. These are transcripts of conversations between Marcus and Vincent Carrera. They discuss eliminating you once I'm dead, making it look like a homicide self-destruction so there are no witnesses to their conspiracy. I watched Eleanor read the transcripts, watched her realize that the man she'd fallen in love with, the man she'd betrayed her marriage for, was planning to eliminate her too. He said he loved me, she whispered. He said that to all of them. Eleanor broke down completely then, sobbing with the kind of raw emotion I hadn't seen from her in years. But I felt nothing. No sympathy, no desire to comfort her, no remnant of the love that had once defined my life. What happens now? She asked through her tears. Now you have a choice. You can cooperate with the FBI investigation, testify against Marcus and Carrera, and maybe avoid spending the rest of your life in prison. Or you can continue protecting the man who is planning to eliminate you. And us? What about our marriage? I looked at Eleanor, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. The woman I'd loved was gone, replaced by someone who could plan homicide while making breakfast, who could smile while administering poison, who could betray 15 years of marriage for money and the promise of excitement. There is no us, Mbise, I said. There hasn't been for months. You eliminated our marriage when you decided to eliminate me. Eleanor nodded, accepting the finality of it. I need to call a lawyer. You need to call the FBI. Agent Martinez is expecting your call. After Eleanor left to turn herself in, I sat alone in our house, surrounded by the remnants of our life together. Wedding photos, vacation souvenirs, the accumulated debris of 15 years, all of it meaningless now. Dennis arrived an hour later with a bottle of bourbon and the latest news. Marcus Cole's been arrested, he said, pouring 2 glasses. Carrera's gone underground, but they'll find him. The FBI is taking this seriously now that they have Eleanor's cooperation. What about the other families, the previous wives? That's the beautiful part. Your documentation has given them enough evidence to reopen all 7 cases. Marcus is looking at multiple homicide charges across 5 states. Even if he beats some of them, he's never getting out of prison. We drank in silence for a while, processing the end of the nightmare that had consumed my life for months. You know, Dennis said eventually, most people would have just gotten a divorce. Most people's wives don't try to eliminate them. Fair point. He raised his glass. To justice. To survival. But even as we toasted, I knew this wasn't really over. Carrera was still out there, and men like him didn't forget grudges. I'd won this battle, but the war might be just beginning. 3 days later, I got my answer. Vincent Carrera made his move on a Thursday evening, exactly 1 week after Eleanor's birthday party. I was working late at the office, reviewing the paperwork for Marcus Cole's case, when Dennis burst through my door. They found Eleanor, he said, his face grim. My blood turned to ice. Found her where? Riverside Marina. Shot twice in the chest, dumped in the water. Fishermen found her body an hour ago. I sat down heavily in my chair. Despite everything Eleanor had done, despite the betrayal and the attempted homicide, she'd still been my wife for 15 years. And now she was dead because she'd gotten involved with monsters. There's more, Dennis continued. Marcus Cole was found dead in his cell this morning. Apparent self-destruction, but the guards are calling it suspicious. Someone got to him. Carrera's cleaning house. That's what I figure. And Danny, you're probably next on his list. I looked out my office window at the parking lot below. It was nearly empty, just a few cars scattered under the yellow streetlights. Any one of them could contain a butcher waiting for me to come outside. We need to call the police, Dennis said. And tell them what? That a man we can't find might want to eliminate me? They'll offer to patrol my neighborhood more frequently and tell me to be careful. So what do you want to do? I thought about Eleanor, dead because she'd trusted the wrong people. I thought about 7 other women who'd made the same mistake. I thought about Marcus Cole, eliminated because he'd become a liability. And I thought about Vincent Carrera, a man who treated human lives like chess pieces in a game only he understood. I want to end this. I said, Danny, these aren't insurance fraudsters we're dealing with. Carrera's got professional butchers working for him. Then it's a good thing I've got a professional investigator working for me. Dennis smiled grimly. What did you have in mind? The plan we developed was risky, but it was the only way to draw Carrera out of hiding. We leaked information through Dennis's contacts that I had additional evidence about Marcus's operation, evidence that could implicate other people in Carrera's organization. We let it be known that I was planning to turn this evidence over to the FBI at a meeting scheduled for Friday night at my office. The bait was irresistible. Carrera couldn't let that evidence reach the authorities, and he couldn't risk leaving me alive to testify. He'd have to come for me personally. Friday evening, I sat in my office with all the lights on, making myself a perfect target. Dennis was positioned in the building across the street with a clear view of my window and a direct line to the police. We'd wired my office for sound and video, ensuring that anything Carrera said or did would be recorded. At 9:30, my phone rang. Mr. Vance? Carrera's voice was calm, almost friendly. I believe you have something that belongs to me. If you want it, come and get it. Oh, I intend to. But first, let me tell you about your wife's final moments. Eleanor was very brave at the end. She actually tried to negotiate offering to disappear forever if I'd spare her life. Quite touching, really. Rage flooded through me, hot and pure. You fool! Now, Mr. Vance. Eleanor made her choices, just as you're making yours. The difference is, I'm giving you an opportunity to reconsider. What do you want? All the evidence you've collected about my operations, every document, every recording, every photograph. In exchange, I'll make your passing quick and painless, just like your wife's. And if I refuse, then you'll die slowly and I'll make sure you watch while I eliminate everyone who helped you. Your friend Dennis, for instance. He has a lovely wife and 2 young daughters. It would be a shame if something happened to them. The line went dead. 10 minutes later, the building's security system was disabled. 15 minutes after that, I heard footsteps in the hallway outside my office. Carrera walked in alone, wearing a dark suit and carrying a briefcase. He looked exactly like what he was, a businessman who happened to specialize in homicide. Mr. Vance, he said, closing the door behind him, you've caused me considerable inconvenience. Good. He opened his briefcase and removed a pistol with a silencer attached. The evidence, please. I gestured to a box on my desk. It's all there. Every document Dennis and I collected, every recording, every piece of proof about Marcus's operation. Carrera examined the contents of the box, his expression growing more satisfied with each file he reviewed. Very thorough, he said. You really are an excellent investigator. It's a shame we couldn't work together instead of against each other. I don't work with butchers. Everyone works with butchers, Mr. Vance. They just don't usually know it. He closed the box and raised the pistol. Any last words? Just one question. Why, Eleanor? Why not just eliminate me directly? Carrera smiled. Because direct revenge is crude, unsatisfying. I wanted you to suffer first, to lose out on everything that mattered to you, to die knowing that your own wife had betrayed you. Unfortunately, your wife proved less competent than I'd hoped. She was never going to succeed, I said. I knew about the arsenic from the beginning. I suspected as much. Your health improved too quickly once you stopped drinking her coffee. Still, the psychological torture was quite effective, wasn't it? Discovering your wife's betrayal, watching your marriage crumble, knowing that the woman you loved was planning your homicide, that was worth the price of admission. He was right. The emotional devastation had been worse than any physical torture he could have devised. Now, Carrera continued, I'm afraid our conversation must come to an end. Actually, I said, I think it's just beginning. The office lights went out, plunging us into darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing everything in a red glow. Through my office window, I could see police cars surrounding the building, their blue and red lights flashing. You set me up, Carrera said, his voice deadly calm. I learned from the best. You taught me that direct approaches don't work. Sometimes you have to be subtle, patient, willing to sacrifice pawns to capture the king. The evidence in that box is real, but it's copies. The originals are already in FBI hands. This whole meeting was just to get you on record confessing to Eleanor's homicide and threatening Dennis's family. Carrera's face twisted with rage. He raised the pistol, but before he could fire, the office door burst open. SWAT officers flooded in, their attack rifles trained on Carrera. Drop the weapon, the lead officer shouted. For a moment, I thought Carrera might try to shoot it out with the police. His finger tightened on the trigger, his eyes locked on mine, with pure hatred. Then he smiled and lowered the tool. Well played, Mr. Vance, he said as the officers cuffed him. Well played indeed. As they led him away, Carrera called back to me. This isn't over. I have friends, associates, people who don't forget debts. You may have won tonight, but you'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Maybe, I replied, but at least I'll have a life to look over my shoulder for. 6 months later, I sat in a federal courthouse in Cleveland, watching Vincent Carrera receive 7 consecutive life sentences for the eliminators of Marcus Cole's previous wives. The evidence Dennis and I had collected, combined with Eleanor's testimony before her passing, had been enough to convict him on multiple counts of conspiracy to commit homicide. Marcus Cole had died in his jail cell, officially ruled a self-destruction, but everyone knew Carrera had ordered his end to prevent him from testifying. Eleanor's homicide had been added to Carrera's charges, ensuring he would never see freedom again. The courtroom was packed with family members of Carrera's sufferers, people who'd waited years for justice. When the judge read the final sentence, several of them wept with relief. I felt nothing. Dennis found me afterward in the courthouse lobby. It's over, he said. Carrera's going to die in prison. His organization is finished. You can finally move on with your life. Can I? I looked around at the marble columns and brass fixtures of the courthouse, the temple of justice where evil men were finally called to account for their crimes. 7 women are still dead. Eleanor's still dead. Marcus got to eliminate himself instead of facing justice for what he did. But you're alive, Danny. You survived something that would have destroyed most people. That has to count for something. Maybe Dennis was right. Maybe survival was enough. Maybe justice, even imperfect justice, was better than revenge. I walked out of that courthouse into a bright spring afternoon, free from the conspiracy that had consumed my life for months. The nightmare was over. Vincent Carrera would never hurt anyone again. The truth about Marcus Cole's crimes had been exposed. Eleanor's betrayal had been answered. But as I drove home to my empty house, past the places where Eleanor and I had built our life together, I realized that winning hadn't made me whole again. Justice hadn't healed the wounds of betrayal. Revenge hadn't brought back the man I'd been before I learned that my wife was trying to eliminate me. I was alive, but I wasn't sure I was living. That night, I sat in my kitchen, drinking coffee that wasn't poisoned, reading a letter that had arrived in the mail. It was from Patricia Hendricks' sister, thanking me for bringing Marcus Cole's crimes to light and giving her family closure after years of wondering what had really happened. You gave us the truth, she wrote. That's all we ever wanted. Just the truth. Maybe that was enough. Maybe the truth was its own form of justice, its own kind of victory. I folded the letter carefully and put it in the box with all the other evidence from the case. Evidence that had destroyed a criminal conspiracy, ended a serial butcher's career, and saved lives that would have been lost if Marcus Cole had been allowed to continue his work. Outside my window, Mrs. Henderson was working in her garden, probably gathering intelligence for tomorrow's neighborhood gossip. Life in suburban Cleveland was returning to normal, or at least to its usual level of dysfunction. My phone buzzed with a text from Dennis. Drinks tonight? Sarah Chen from Channel 8 wants to interview you about the case. I thought about it for a moment, then typed back, rain check. I'm done being part of other people's stories. For the first time in months, I felt something approaching peace. Vincent Carrera had been right about one thing. I would spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, wondering if he had friends who remembered debts. But he'd been wrong about something more important. I hadn't just survived his game, I'd won it.